There is a certain kind of parent who will tell you, hand on heart, that having children is the best thing they ever did. And in the very same breath, they will describe a life that sounds genuinely exhausting. More chaos, less sleep, less free time, less of almost everything that people usually associate with happiness. And here is the strange part. They're not lying about either of those things. Today, we are going to decode one of the most well-documented contradictions in all of psychology. The fact that parents, on average, report lower day-to-day happiness than people without children. And yet, they also report a deeper sense that their life means something, that it's going somewhere, that it matters. This is the psychology of parents who are exhausted but fulfilled. Most people assume happiness and meaning are the same thing. They're not. And the moment you understand the difference, your entire framework for what makes a good life starts to shift. Let's start with the brain, because this is where the paradox begins to make sense. Researchers at the University of Southern California followed 88 first-time fathers through pregnancy and into early parenthood. 35 of those fathers went into fMRI brain scanners before the birth and again after. The scientists were looking at how well different regions of the brain were talking to each other. What they found was striking. Fathers who reported more negative feelings about parenting showed changes in two specific regions: the sensory cortex, which processes sound and touch, and the cerebellum, which helps the brain react to inputs emotionally. In plain terms, their brains had developed a hypersensitivity. A baby's cry, biologically engineered to be impossible to ignore, was triggering a full-blown, constant stress response. No filter, no off switch, just alarm bells ringing with no way to turn them down. But the fathers whose sense of meaning increased showed changes in completely different regions: the insular cortex and the temporal pole. These are the parts of the brain that help you make sense of your life as a whole. Think of it this way. Imagine your brain is running two monitors at the same time. Monitor 1. This is everything happening right now, the positives and the negatives, the first words, the 2 a.m. wake-up call, the screaming, the laughs, the mess in the living room. That monitor is running hot. It is chaotic and intense. Monitor 2. This is your identity, your sense of who you are, where your life is going, and the story you are telling about yourself. The insular cortex acts as a connecting cable between those two monitors. It takes the raw, sensory chaos from the first screen and hands it to the second screen for context. The temporal pole then ties that chaos, including the stressful times, to your broader narrative, your goals, and your purpose. When those two regions are well connected, a parent can feel completely wrecked by a sleepless night, while simultaneously understanding that night as a necessary chapter in something larger than themselves. The exhaustion and the meaning are processed in separate circuits. They do not cancel each other out. They coexist. But this raises an obvious question. If meaning comes from that second monitor, does having children automatically switch it on? The data says absolutely not. A landmark German study called the Socioeconomic Panel tracked the same individuals from their late teens all the way into their 40s and 50s. When researchers compared midlife well-being between parents and non-parents, they found almost no significant difference. Let that land for a second. The cultural story we are all handed, go to school, get married, have kids, be happy, is not supported by the data. At midlife, parents and non-parents report similar overall well-being. Instead, the most important factor for predicting happiness was alignment. Was their actual life aligning with the goals they set for themselves back in their 20s? People who always dreamed of having kids but never did, and never made peace with it, ended up less happy. Not because they lacked children, but because their reality conflicted with their internal story. However, most child-free adults gradually updated their goals as they aged, and their well-being remained identical to parents. Their brains rewarded them for rewriting the script. The takeaway here is not that children make you happy or unhappy. Sorry, kids. The takeaway is that meaning comes from alignment. When your daily life matches the story you tell yourself about who you are, you flourish. When it doesn't, you suffer. But what happens when life changes the story for you overnight? A medical diagnosis, a trauma, a global crisis. This is where meaning stops being a nice idea and becomes a survival tool. We see this clearly across psychological research. During COVID-19 lockdowns, young adults with a strong pre-existing sense of meaning showed massive emotional resilience. The isolation was just a plot twist in a stable story. In trauma-exposed military veterans, those who integrated their traumatic memories into a broader life narrative experienced significantly lower PTSD symptoms. Those who didn't found that the unprocessed trauma began to manifest physically as chronic pain and inflammation. When the mind refuses to integrate an experience, the body carries it instead. So, how do you build that kind of meaning deliberately when you feel lost? Researchers found the answer in the oldest story structure humans have ever used, the hero's journey. It's the bones of Harry Potter, of every myth, every fairy tale, every movie where someone goes through something hard and comes out different on the other side. It has 7 parts. There is a protagonist, that's you. A shift, something that changes everything, wanted or not. A quest, the thing you're moving toward. Allies, the people who show up for you. A challenge, the hard part, the part that feels impossible. A transformation, who you become because of it. And the legacy, what you leave behind. This structure appears across virtually every culture and every era of human history. And researchers didn't just study it, they used it. They asked people to take the actual events of their real lives and map them onto this framework, not as a cute metaphor, as a literal tool. Who are your allies? What is your quest? And crucially, what if the hardest thing you are going through right now is not the end of your story, but the challenge phase? The part that, in every story you have ever loved, comes right before the transformation. And it worked. This process increased participants' sense of meaning in life. It increased their resilience, and it changed how they approach future problems. They began to see themselves as more capable of handling ambiguous, difficult situations. Think of it like this. You are walking around with raw, unedited footage of your life. Random clips, painful moments, confusing detours. Left unedited, it looks like noise. But the moment you sit down in the editing room, the layoff becomes the plot twist. The sleepless nights become the challenge phase. The grief becomes the transformation. You are not just the character in the story. You are the director. A meaningful life does not require constant happiness. If you are a parent, the data practically guarantees you will have less moment-to-moment happiness than your child-free friends. A meaningful life also does not require following any specific cultural script. Not parenthood, not a corner office, not any particular milestone by any particular age. What it requires is a consistently updated self-narrative, a story that integrates your daily reality, all of it, the good and the hard and the deeply unglamorous, with your long-term sense of who you are. Because meaning isn't something you find, it's something you narrate. And as someone once put it, life is not a question to be answered, it is a mystery to be lived. You don't solve it once and put it away. You keep writing it. Your brain is built to keep updating it. The insular cortex, the temporal pole, the second monitor. The hardware is already there. You just have to supply the software. And the software is the living of your story right at this moment. Parents who thrive are not people who somehow avoid the exhaustion. They are people whose brains have learned to contextualize it. If you treat every dirty diaper or teenage argument as a cosmic tragedy, you will burn out fast. But if you see these challenges as just the natural, messy logistics of life you're choosing to live, you can handle them efficiently while keeping your inner peace. That is not delusion. That is not toxic positivity. That is the most sophisticated thing a human brain can do. And the most empowering part of everything we covered today is this: that capacity is not reserved for parents. Every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, is an opportunity to learn and upgrade your life, rather than letting it degrade your inner well-being. Because life satisfaction is not handed to you, it is built, and the sign shows you already have everything you need to build it. That parent describing sleepless nights and calling it the best thing they ever did, they're not confused, they're not in denial, they're simply choosing to be the author of their own hero story. Thanks for watching. If this shifted your perspective, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.